I wasn't supposed to hear it. But that night, as I sat quietly in my small room, mending the hem of an old quilt by the dim lamp, their voices slipped through the thin wooden walls. My son, Michael, the boy I had once carried on my back through snowstorms, the boy whose fever I had prayed over until morning light, he was whispering to his wife in the next room. "She doesn't need this house anymore," he said. His voice was low, but each word cut me like a knife. "If we sell it now, we could put a down payment on that bigger place near the city. Mom won't even know what's happening. She's too old to understand these things. Too old. Too old to understand." I sat frozen, the needle in my hand shaking. Clara, his wife, laughed softly. "Michael, you're right. She barely eats. Barely moves. What good is this big old house for her? She should be in a nursing home anyway. Let's take care of things before she makes a mess of it." My breath caught in my throat. My son didn't argue. He didn't defend me. Instead, I heard the clink of glasses, a toast to my erasure. "Child, I need you to understand something. Betrayal doesn't always come with shouting or slamming doors. Sometimes it arrives in whispers, in the quiet plotting of people you love most. And when it does, it is heavier than any weight your body can carry." That night, I pressed the quilt to my chest and closed my eyes. I remembered every mile I had walked in broken shoes to keep him clothed. I remembered skipping meals so he could eat. I remembered washing blood from my hands after working 2 jobs, just so he could go to school with dignity. And now, after everything, my son, my own flesh, planned to sell the very roof over my head while I was still breathing beneath it. The next morning, I moved slowly through the kitchen, acting as though nothing had happened. Clara avoided my gaze, bustling about with her perfect hair and her sharp perfume. Michael sat at the table with his coffee, flipping through the newspaper, as though the night before had never happened. "Good morning, Mom," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Good morning," I answered softly. My voice did not betray me, but my heart. Oh, child, my heart felt as though it had been shattered into glass. As I poured my tea, I glanced at the framed photo hanging by the window. Michael at 12 years old, his smile wide, his hand clutching a baseball glove I had saved 3 months to buy. I had thought then that my sacrifices meant something. That one day he would look back and know what it cost me to keep him safe. But sometimes, love blinds us. Sometimes, we give everything, and still it is not enough. Later that afternoon, I sat with you on the porch. You were small, your legs swinging as you asked me about the world, why the leaves turned colors, why the birds always seemed to know when to fly south. I smiled, running my hand over your hair. In you, I found hope. In your laughter, I felt God had given me one last gift before I left this earth. But deep inside, I carried the secret of what I had overheard. I could not tell you then, child. I didn't want to paint your father in the colors of his betrayal. You were too young, too innocent. Instead, I carried it in silence. Nights became heavier after that. Every creak in the floorboards made me wonder if they were moving closer to their plan. Every piece of paper Clara carried made me wonder if it was a deed, a contract, a betrayal waiting for my signature. I kept my secret place beneath the old oak chest in my room, papers my brother had left me, proof that the house was mine and mine alone. They didn't know I had them. They didn't know that years ago, when my brother passed, he had placed this home in my name to protect me. I thought about those papers often. Should I reveal them? Should I confront Michael and show him that I was not blind, not helpless? Or should I wait, hold my silence, and see how far his betrayal would go? Child, let me tell you something I have learned in all these years. Silence can be a weapon sharper than any blade. Sometimes, when the world expects you to break, the strongest thing you can do is wait, quietly, patiently, until the truth reveals itself. So I waited. I smiled at Michael when he walked through the door. I thanked Clara when she placed a plate of food in front of me, though I noticed it was always smaller than theirs. I played with you in the afternoons, humming lullabies I had once sung to your father. But inside, my heart was preparing for the day when their whispers would no longer remain hidden. Preparing for the day when the truth would rise like the sun, burning away the shadows of their lies. underscore 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 underscore. And so, child, the story begins with that night, the night I overheard my son planning to sell my house while I was still alive. It was the night I realized that even the people you love most can become strangers when greed takes hold. But it was also the night I promised myself something. They would not break me. They would not erase me. And when the time came, I would show them the truth. That is where the story begins. And from here, the path is long, filled with sorrow and sacrifice, but also with strength and hope. Sit close, child. Let me tell you what happened next. Child, after that night when I overheard the whispers, life in this house began to feel different. I carried the weight of their plan in my chest like a stone, but I said nothing. I moved through each day as if blind, as if deaf, though my heart heard and saw everything. It's strange, isn't it? How cruelty rarely comes all at once. No, it comes drop by drop, like water on stone, wearing you down until you begin to doubt your own strength. Underscore 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 underscore. Clara became bolder after that. She no longer hid her disdain behind a false smile. At the breakfast table, she would set a smaller plate in front of me. A single piece of toast when the others had eggs and bacon. A thin bowl of soup when the others feasted on roast. "You don't need much, Mother Hayes," she would say, her voice dripping with false kindness. "At your age, too much food isn't good for the body." I would nod, whispering a quiet thank you, though my stomach ached. Your father, my son, sat silently beside her, his eyes always on the newspaper, his coffee cup raised to his lips. He never stopped her. He never spoke for me. The house itself seemed to grow colder. Once, this home had been filled with laughter, with warmth, with the smell of fresh bread and children's toys scattered across the floor. I remembered Michael as a boy, running through the halls, his hair messy, his cheeks red from play. I remembered Christmas mornings, when I stayed up all night sewing stockings, because we couldn't afford store-bought ones. Now, the laughter was gone. The walls seemed to listen only to whispers, whispers of money, of property, of selling what did not belong to them. There were moments, child, when I wanted to shout, to lay the papers on the table and tell them, "You cannot take this from me. This house is mine." But then I would see you, sitting quietly with your school books, your eyes watching everything, your little hands clutching my sleeve. I realized my fight was not only for myself. It was for you, so that you could learn what dignity looked like, even when the world tried to strip it away. So I stayed silent. I waited. The humiliations grew sharper. Clara began to speak of me as though I were not in the room. "She forgets things," she would tell the neighbors. "She's not as sharp as she once was. Poor thing, she doesn't know what's going on." I would be standing right there, holding a tray, my ears burning. "She's harmless," Clara would add with a laugh. "A little senile, but we manage." And the neighbors would nod politely, their eyes sliding toward me with pity. Oh, child, do you know how it feels to be erased while still alive? To have your worth measured not by the years of sacrifice behind you, but by the wrinkles on your face, the slowness of your steps. At night, when everyone slept, I would kneel by the oak chest in my room. My hands, though arthritic and trembling, would open the lid and draw out the envelope of papers. The deed to the house. The savings account my brother left me. Proof of my name, my dignity, my survival. I would run my fingers over the ink, whispering prayers into the darkness. Lord, give me patience. Lord, let me see the day when truth comes to light. And then I would tuck the papers back beneath the quilt, hiding them like buried treasure. One evening, you found me crying quietly on the porch. You were too young to understand, but you reached out and placed your small hand in mine. "Grandma, why are you sad?" you asked. I wiped my tears quickly and smiled. Because sometimes grown-ups forget the value of simple things. But you, child, you remind me of what matters. You tilted your head, puzzled, but you pressed your face against my arm, and in that moment, I felt strength return to me. The pressure inside the house grew. Clara pressed your father constantly. If we wait too long, someone else will buy that property near the city. We need to act now. Your mother won't know the difference. She's slipping more every day. Your father would hesitate, but then nod. You're right. Soon. They thought my silence was proof of weakness. They thought my quiet eyes, my bowed head, meant I had lost the world inside me. But silence, child, can be the sharpest blade. Underscore 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 underscore. And so the days turned into weeks. Clara grew more desperate, my son more uneasy, and I grew stronger in my resolve. I knew the reckoning was coming. I could feel it in the way Clara's eyes burned when she looked at me, in the way your father avoided my gaze. The storm was gathering, and I was ready. Child, the day finally came when I could no longer keep my silence. It was a Sunday morning. The house smelled of fresh coffee and buttered biscuits. Sunlight poured through the windows, but inside, the air was heavy with tension I could no longer ignore. I sat at the table with my worn shawl around my shoulders. Clara stood at the counter, speaking in a voice loud enough for me to hear. Michael, she said sharply, we can't wait any longer. I've already spoken with an agent. The buyers are ready. If we don't sell this house soon, we'll lose everything. Your mother won't even notice. She barely knows what day it is anymore. My son, your father, rubbed his forehead and sighed. Clara, please lower your voice. She's sitting right there. Clara turned, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She doesn't understand, Michael. She's slipping. Look at her. She probably thinks it's 1975. The words struck like knives. My hands trembled, but I clasped them in my lap. Enough, I thought. Enough. I rose slowly, the wooden chair scraping against the floor. Both of them turned to me, startled. I may walk slower, I said, my voice steady, but I have not lost my mind. I may be old, but I am not blind. And I hear every word you say. The room froze. Clara's face flushed red. Michael's eyes darted away, shame flickering across his features. You think I do not notice when you give me scraps at dinner? When you whisper to the neighbors that I'm senile? When you plan to sell this house while I am still alive? Tears stung my eyes, but my voice grew stronger. I built this home with my bare hands and my broken back. Every brick, every nail carries the years I spent scrubbing floors, sewing clothes, skipping meals so my children would not go hungry. This house is not yours to sell. Clara laughed nervously. Mother Hayes, please. You imagining things. No one said. Enough. I thundered, louder than I had spoken in years. My hand slammed down on the table, the sound echoing through the kitchen. Then, with trembling fingers, I reached into the folds of my shawl and drew out the thick, worn envelope I had hidden for so long. I laid it on the table with deliberate care. Inside were the deeds, the savings account papers, and a letter from my late brother, all proof that this house, this piece of land, belonged to me and me alone. Michael's eyes widened as I spread the papers before him. His hands shook as he picked them up. This is your name, he whispered. The deed, it's all in your name. Yes, I said firmly. It always has been. Michael fell to his knees beside my chair, his face crumbling with shame. Mama, I'm sorry. I should have stood by you. I let her words poison me. I forgot what you sacrificed for me, for us. His tears fell onto my hands as he clutched them tightly. Please forgive me. Clara stood frozen, her chest heaving. For once, her sharp tongue had no words. She looked from me to the papers, and then to her husband. The reality of her schemes had unraveled before her eyes. I looked at her quietly. I don't need revenge, Clara. I don't even need your apology. What I need is respect. If you cannot give me that, then stay out of my way. This house will stand as long as I breathe, and no one, not even my own blood, will take it from me. The room fell silent except for the sound of Michael's sobs. Finally, Clara lowered her head, the fight draining out of her. She walked out of the kitchen, her footsteps heavy with defeat. Michael stayed beside me, still holding my hands. "Mama," he whispered, "you are stronger than I ever knew." I looked into his eyes, seeing not just my son, but the boy I once rocked to sleep, the child I fed when I had nothing for myself. My heart ached, but it also healed. "I am not strong, Michael," I said softly. "I am simply a mother who never stopped loving, even when that love was forgotten." That night, as I sat with you on the porch, the stars glowing above, I felt lighter than I had in years. You leaned against me, your small fingers twining with mine. "Grandma," you whispered, "were you scared when you showed them the papers?" I smiled faintly. "Yes, child. I was. But sometimes, courage is doing what must be done even when fear is all around you. And hope is believing that truth will always shine, even in the darkest rooms." You pressed your head against my shoulder, and in that moment, I knew the future was safe, because you had listened, because you had learned. And so, child, my story ends not with bitterness, but with peace. They thought I was too old, too weak, too senile. But the truth was always mine. And in the end, it set me free,